This is about the news. Oh, so then the whole point of setting everything up. The Olympics. Actually, really honestly, not much Corona news, which is nice. It means there's actually a shift. Maybe people are, I don't know, maybe they don't care anymore. In Japan, they certainly don't care anymore. The state of emergencies mean nothing. Let me get the microphone in the right place here. Just a couple interesting Olympic facts, though, because that's the only other news. Because it was Corona and Olympics, Corona and Olympics. And see, McBee, I made pretty clear my feelings on the Olympics, and I'm pretty tired of Corona, too. I now know a couple of people who've gotten their first dose of vaccination, but I don't know anyone who's completely vaccinated. There's a lot of companies doing it. Mine isn't. Don't know. I don't know if I should, get into that. I think so. Companies are now able to distribute vaccine to their employees. Of course, as soon as I say I shouldn't talk about it, I start talking about it. The first question I couldn't find an answer to is, does the company shoulder some of the cost? Because that might be why my company's not doing it. A lot of companies are cheap. The companies I read about, though, a lot of them had doctors and nurses as part of the staff. And so that would make a big difference because my company does not have a doctor or nurses as part of the staff. So I actually think that might be the reason. I don't think, I think being able to say your employees are all vaccinated would make people far more comfortable coming to you to do stuff. So I actually think it's a good sales tactic. But again, I'm not on the board of directors, quite obviously. Some Olympic facts have come out. They're going to have 18,000 private security personnel patrolling 43 Olympic venues and neighborhoods. I have a lot of questions about the private security. Because whenever you hear private security, I think like fiction. And the private security in fiction, actually, when you hear about private security in real life, it's because they've done something awful or shot people or, crossed the lines that they're not supposed to cross. So I think just the image of private security is pretty poor. This is probably just security guards. I'm wondering, once you get to the number 18,000, though, how well trained they are, okay, I think it might be a lot of old men. And the only problem I have with old men, if you give them an iota of authority, their behavior is sometimes questionable because they're trying to regain that youth. I've recently started reading about midlife crises, and there's actually a thing called quarter life crisis, which I didn't know about. I hopefully have gone through my midlife crisis. I'm pretty comfortable with who I am. I don't know. I haven't gotten too desperate. I haven't bought like a sports car or anything like that. But I think if there's quarter life crisis, there must be like a 3/4 life crisis, and that would be the older security guards who like get off on telling people what to do. We've all met that cop. How about that? I'm not going to the Olympics. I don't care. I expect some horror stories of a cop, a rent-a-cop, shouldn't call him that, private security. A private security guy just totally overstepping and like arresting people or something that he can't actually do. They have a lot of people in uniforms in Japan. They have a lot of the parking garage attendants have almost like police cosplay uniforms, which I've always found really weird because you get far away, they look pretty good, but you get up close, you realize they don't fit. The badges are often safety pinned on. Yeah, they don't inspire terror or authority or whatever they're supposed to inspire. Confidence, they don't inspire that either. I don't want to talk about the Olympics, and I rushed myself. I took Dave for an extra long walk, so I kind of rushed myself to get started. I should have taken more time. This was one of the problems of putting a start time on the calendar on stream, is you now feel like you have to start on time, or you're late, where really it's just I should start when I'm ready. The Olympics! This is, I would say, sad for the people, but not sad for me. 910,000 Olympic tickle holders. This is again another sign I have started too soon. 910,000 Olympic ticket holders will lose their tickets after a new lottery system goes into place. So they have X amount of tickets already out in the wild. and they've decided to limit the number of people who can actually attend the Olympics by a lower number. They're actually going to reduce it to 2.72 million spectators. That's over all the events over the whole time the Olympics are going. The lottery is going to start on July 6th again via their ticketing website. It could be reduced further. So you could actually have gotten a ticket and then lose that ticket and enter the lottery, and then get a ticket again, and then maybe even lose that ticket if like coronavirus gets worse. So that's something to be aware of. Your ticket that you have might not actually exist. It's Schrodinger's ticket. Schrodinger's. I have. I'm going to need to do vocal warm-ups, which I've never done before. I need a drink of water. I might just take a break after the Olympic stories and go get some water. They had sold 3.6 million tickets in Japan and 900,000 overseas. Now, 900,000 overseas, all blanked out. You don't get that. You don't get to come to Japan. You don't get to be a spectator. The 3.6 million they have, they're going to reduce that to 2.72 million in Japan. And then I read a story just this morning. There wasn't much to it. It just said like schools aren't going to take their kids to the Olympics as like field trips and stuff. Good. Because if you want a super spreader, it's an 8-year-old who's hyper. And there was one more decision made about the Olympics. I am going to go get a drink of water. Last week, they decided to... Oh, no. So that's not related. I got two stories confused. They've decided to reverse... they had a contract with Asahi Beer. And they said, we're going to serve Asahi Beer at the Olympics. You come out, get liquored up, watch the Olympics. People do flips. Super, super hot. Everyone's really excited about that. Maybe super hot wasn't the right word. They've decided to reverse that. Even despite the contract with Asahi Beer, they're not going to serve alcohol at the Olympics. And that's, again, it's because of coronavirus. They actually said it's because they don't want to spread the disease. They didn't actually say how drinking beer spreads the disease, but after my little 10-minute fanfic of Thor and Wonder Woman last week, where Thor's inhibitions have been lowered because of the drinking in the rooms. I'm assuming the athletes can still drink in the rooms by themselves. But again, that's just leading to the condom issue that also came up last week. So if you want to go to the Olympics to get really trashed and watch skeet shooting, that's not going to work out for you. You're going to have to do that sober, which I think is the only way you could actually watch skeet shooting. What other sports can you only watch drunk? I don't watch sports. That might be the problem. The core issue here is that I would never sit down for 2 hours and watch a sport. I participate in judo. I barely can stand watching judo. It looks like large men hugging and then someone falls over. Highlights. So the end of the year, so around December and January, there's a couple websites will put out like highlights of the year. That I want to watch. I would love to watch the highlights of the Olympics because that's like something amazing. But gymnastics routines. I know everyone loves gymnastics except me. I love Gymkata. Everyone loves the gymnastics. But to me, after the first set of flippy flips, I'm like, okay, I've actually kind of seen it. I'm kind of done. Highlights, though, like the guy doing a triple flip into the ceiling, hanging on and then dropping down and kissing a girl in the audience. That I want to see. So basically, once the Olympics are over, someone's going to do a compilation of the Olympic highlights. I'll watch that. I have no desire to watch the Olympics. There's no sport I want to watch for hours and hours and hours. Golf. Like, okay, so the biggest complaint I have about living in Japan around holidays specifically. New Year's, they have a lot of New Year's marathons. And then I will go over to my family's house. And so if I'm at my family's house, I don't have control over the TV. And what they do is they put on a marathon in the background and they ignore it completely and talk. Which means, because I'm not... okay, this is going to be really weird because I'm doing a podcast where I talk constantly for like 20, 30 minutes and then make another podcast where I talk about something else for 20 minutes. I don't actually talk that much. Maybe I get it all out here and I don't need to talk for the rest of the week. But I'm not a chatty person, honestly. If you start a conversation with me, I'm actually a very good conversationalist as a partner, but I don't generally feel the desire or need or the impetus to start a conversation. So they turn on marathon, and then I usually am just sitting there staring at the marathon, and it's just people running for 2 hours. And I don't get how someone could actually watch that voluntarily. I'm basically doing it under duress. I'm doing my best to be like, hey, better go home and check on the dog. Now that we have a dog, that's my excuse. Just so I can get out of there and not watch marathon. You only need to watch the last 4 minutes of a marathon. That's it. All the drama and the excitement happens then. There might be a couple of bits in the middle where people jockey for position, but most of them are just trying to maintain pace the whole time. Last 2 minutes, not even 4, 2 minutes. Last 2 minutes when people are approaching the finish line. That's when someone's going to make a move. That's when someone's going to fall down because they ran too fast. That's the excitement of a marathon. The last 2 minutes. And even then, I don't want to watch that. Running is a nightmare to me. It's all crimes. I think it's all crimes. Here's a story we did. I don't know if I wrote it down. Okay, anyways, there's a police chief a while ago, a couple months ago maybe. He stole 5 rolls of toilet paper from a shopping mall. He was caught. That's why we know it's a story. He was drunk. He got a 1-month pay cut for that. The toilet rolls, they were worth 170 yen or something like that. 5 rolls though, so I was like, that's cheap toilet paper. Instead of taking just the 1-month pay cut, he quit. Which, I guess this is embarrassing enough. It's hard to be a respected police chief if you've been arrested for stealing toilet paper. They basically said because of the severity of the crime, they are not going to prosecute. Which I actually think what probably happened is the shopping mall didn't want the trouble of actually prosecuting the police chief. And just look, it's rolls of toilet paper. He could say sorry. He quit his job. I actually think in the world of justice, that's enough. You got caught stealing 5 rolls of toilet paper and had to quit your job. Okay, that's punishment. He's in his 60s though, so he was at retirement age. I don't have a great deal of sympathy for him either, but we don't need to over-punish people. The thing is, when you get caught stealing stuff, they go to your house and through your apartment or wherever you live. I assume he lived in a house. The police chiefs, they make a fair sum of money. When they searched his home, they found 13 more rolls of toilet paper from the same mall. They found 13 more rolls of toilet paper from the same mall toilet, or the same mall at least, maybe not the same toilet, in his apartment. So this was not an isolated incident. And that's actually where, if you were going to get really critical, he's a serial criminal. He's the same theft, the same act of theft. He's done it multiple times. This isn't like the one time he did it. It's a one and done. It was an accident because he was drunk. He's done this before. He just doesn't want to pay for toilet paper. So that's something to think on. Does he deserve... So I said for the 5 toilet rolls that he stole, he quit his job. That's punishment enough. But it isn't just that. He's actually done it before. Does he deserve to be punished even worse? They're not prosecuting. I actually do I understand it because this is not the crime of the century. So we're good with just that the way it is. There was an interesting story because there's a thing I didn't know existed. And I kind of wanted to go see some, but the ones they were talking about were all taken off the internet. This is the first arrest for what's called a fast movie. A fast movie is a thing I'd never heard of. And what people do is they take movies and they edit them down to about 10 minutes. So you get all the main plot points. And then you can watch the entire movie, essentially, the 10-minute version. This is like the Cliff Notes of movies. And they upload it to YouTube and you can watch it. That was a very roundabout way of saying one sentence. They were arrested for uploading 5 movies to YouTube. And they're suspected of uploading hundreds more. So there are hundreds of these movies on YouTube. And I was like, how good is it? First of all, it's editing. So how good is the editing? Because I do basic editing for fun. I edit these podcasts. I edit the video. I did an editing thing for work recently, which I enjoy editing, but I can't say I'm good at it. I understand my software, so I can do all the basics really well. Certainly not going to be editing a professional film anytime soon. It takes a lot of patience. I think that's what it is. Editing a 2-hour movie down to 10 minutes and making it cogent and relevant sort of would be really difficult. So that's something I was kind of interested in to actually just see one. I don't want to support these criminal activities. I think you should pirate movies the way everyone else does and watch them in their entirety. But is it really, the question I had was a 10-minute version of a movie still any good? Because I watch a lot of action movies. If you cut all the action out, it's not really much of anything anymore, because I certainly don't want the plot of most of the movies I like. Dramas, I mean, the whole point of most dramas is they're building towards something. So if you take out all the building, is that... And then maybe just monster movies or horror movies that, like, they just reveal the monster in the first 5 minutes. So I didn't understand the appeal. Maybe because I like movies and I want to see the entire thing and I want to see the structure from start to middle to end so that you can actually see how things were constructed and whatnot. A 10-minute version seems like almost a waste of time, but I guess you could then turn around and say you've seen the movie, but I don't see the point. This might be getting to like the same problem I have with a lot of fetishes. It's not my fetish, so I don't see the point. Are there people who just walk around saying, I've seen every movie? Because they watch the 10-minute version so they can watch like 5, 6 a night. Takes about the same amount of time as watching like a 90-minute movie. And then you can say, oh, you know, I watched that, I've seen that. Is that something people do? I guess it must. I mean, there'd be no market for it otherwise. I have a subsection on my website called The Guy Who Lays Things Out. And it's every crime in Japan, this is what happens. They get usually a blue tarp. They lay it out in a gym floor, so some high school or community center or something. And they take whatever they've, recovered, and they lay it out so people can see. It's kind of to show off like how much stuff they got back. So you've seen this in movies where they lay out all the drugs and guns and stuff. In Japan, one of the weirdest ones was bicycle seats. But they do have bicycle seats, and the one I'm showing on the screen right now is shoes. There was a shoe thief. But I'm always interested in the logic of the guy who lays the things out. Like, he has to make choices. So in this picture, it's all the shoes laid out in order with a box behind it. And that's the box the shoes were kept in, but they're not shoe boxes. They're actually like those model Gundam boxes. And some of them have bags and some don't. So they were, some of them were wrapped up. And it seems like vacuum sealing them. He actually says in this, the smell is an important part. So he admitted 2 things. He made 2 statements when he was arrested. I've been interested in shoes worn by women since I was a kid. I did this to satisfy my sexual desire. The smell is an important part. So once the shoes, if they're left out in the open, the smell, I guess, would dry up. I don't know, dissipate. And then they would lose sort of the active ingredient that satisfies this man. An office, this is how they found him. An office had found that some of their shoes were going missing, so they installed a security camera. I mean, about as basic as a story could get. Then they had pictures of the guy stealing some shoes. Cops show up. He's actually done this before. He's been arrested for this before. So they found him pretty easily. In his apartment, there were 139 pairs of shoes. Now, I believe in the picture up on the screen are probably almost all 139 pairs of shoes. Primarily, he was looking for nurses' shoes. I didn't actually know that was a specific type. High heel pumps and sandals. So that's what he was looking for. That was kind of his thing. Now, the thing I learned is one of the things they do is in this situation. So they've laid out all these shoes. So let's say I'm looking at this picture on the news and I go, hey, those are my shoes. You can contact the police station and get your shoes back. But that presupposes a very strange question that I would actually want my shoes back after I know this guy has been sniffing them and satisfying himself, if I want to say that in the most gentle way possible. I would bet that most of these shoes go unclaimed because you wouldn't want it back. I mean, I think that's true. I don't know if everyone would agree with that, but I'm pretty sure most people, after the experience that I know these shoes have been through, I do not want to be a part of that experience anymore. On Velocipodcast, I don't know when, I did tell the story of a guy pooping himself in my pants. It was judo. He had stomach issues. I'm going to tell the 2-minute version because you can go back and listen to the whole one. He had to change his pants. My coach grabbed me and said, "Give me your spare pants." I did without actually finding out why, because in judo, the reason you have spare pants or a jacket is in case some blood gets on it. So I just thought, oh, someone had a bloody nose, got some blood on their pants, need new pants. And then he went out and fought again in my pants and pooped himself again. So he tried to return those, and I was like, no. You don't return pants that have been pooped in. You just keep them. That's like a sacred contract between you and the pants now. Once you've pooped in them, they're yours. And so I have a basic rule in my life. If you've pooped in something, it's yours. And then people make jokes like, oh, if I poop in your car, is it my car? I was like, you know what? Maybe it is. Depends how bad that poop was. There are situations where I wouldn't want the car back. Oh, this is a really interesting story to me. This is a Corona news, but it's not Corona news. So that's actually one of the reasons I liked it. But they have these hotels and stuff where people are being locked up in quarantine. So let's say I get off an airplane, I'm sick, they put me in a hotel. I think you have to pay some of the money for the hotel, but Japan's pretty generous about helping you out with that kind of stuff. So it's not going to cost you a crazy amount. But you got to be in there for 2-3 weeks, whatever. A man broke out of a quarantine hotel in Osaka. Now, what happened is a nurse called up to his room. One of the other stories I'd actually done early quarantine days was that one of the things they were doing is they were just, you stay in your room by yourself and they send you a Line message. Line is a messenger service in Asia. And then you respond to it. You say, yeah, my symptoms are the same. My fever is the same, whatever. And then they just leave you there. So there's, minimal contact between you and the nurse, the doctors or whatever. Then when people didn't answer, that's when they would go up and check. This guy wasn't answering his phone. So they went up and checked on him and they found that the glass was smashed in his window. The thing is, he was on the 6th floor. So they don't explain the building very well. So I assume there's either a fire escape or something, but he smashed the window to get out of his room from the 6th floor and he's escaped. There are 24/7 security guards and cameras around the hotel. And there's no trace. There's no sign of escape. That was a weird sentence though, that last one. In the news article I read, it said no sign of escape. There's a broken window. That's pretty much the biggest sign of escape you could get. I think what they mean is they can't figure out how he got down from the 6th floor and ran away without being seen. There had to be something he could climb. I don't know if it was balcony to balcony. I've seen people do that on the internet. And there's no collapsed body on the ground, so he didn't just fall out. He's gone. So there's now a manhunt on for a guy who broke quarantine. They didn't say if it was a Japanese guy or a foreign guy. So I'm actually assuming it's just a Japanese guy. He broke out, but that means he has a home somewhere. So they must have gone to his home. They got to know stuff about this guy. How have they not caught him already? But he's actually on the run. So then that leads me to a second question. Has he done something else? Or something else that happened in his life? But you think they would kind of know that happened? I guess. I don't know. There's so few details, but it's actually fascinating. There's almost no reason to break out of quarantine. But then, of course, there must be a reason to break out of quarantine, or he wouldn't have broken out of quarantine. You wouldn't break out of quarantine because you were bored, I think. But then there are people in the world who are sort of so selfish, they absolutely would just break out of quarantine because they were bored. This is an interesting crime only because it's the first time it's actually happened. Or the first time it's been a prosecuted thing. A 57-year-old man has been arrested for damaging the reputation of a female athlete. So there was a volleyball player, and basically she was doing warm-ups and practicing and stuff. And this guy was using an infrared camera to video her while she was, let's say, warming up. And then he used the infrared camera. What it showed up is you could see her underwear. I guess? I'm trying to think, she's wearing, if it's a volleyball player, she's wearing, the tight T-shirt and shorts and maybe knee pads and stuff. That's what they wear. The underwear they're wearing underneath, I'm assuming, is not that sexy. As this is during an athletic thing. This isn't cosplay. This is an athletic event. They want to be as comfortable as possible. But, so my first thought was the shorts are enough, but apparently not. So he's gotten an infrared camera. He's filmed her. He put an 8-minute video, sort of highlights on the internet, and he made 6 million yen. My This shows sort of, again, my thinking. My first thought was, she's not even naked. Like, I'm not paying money to see a lady in her underwear. I can see like bikini pictures all day, every day on the internet. There's absolutely no need for that. So that was weird. But because he posted a sexualized video on a porn site, this has damaged her reputation. He's been arrested for it. He's probably going to have to pay some sort of restitution towards the volleyball player. But he's been arrested for damaging the reputation of another person, which is a very interesting thing because, again, that's the first time it's happened in Japan, the first time this has gone to prosecution. We've had a couple stories in the last few weeks of people making like hundreds and hundreds of calls to some place they were angry about. I don't remember the specifics now because it's not in my head. But there's been another one. So again, there's sort of like a rash of stories and then it changes. So it goes like underwear theft and then we get some shoe theft. And then we get weird people wearing clothes and breaking into schools and stuff. This is a 58-year-old man who made 2,300 silent calls to a clothing store between December and April. Someone out in Newsland has actually started listening to Ninja Japan because they know I want the numbers. So if they don't give it to me, I have to do the math. And I don't want to do the math. I don't want to make you guys listen to me do basic math. This averaged about 20 calls a day. Now, I was, again, immediately thinking, oh, wait, how many is that per hour or per minute? But then it's, again, not worth doing. In an 8-hour day, he's making 2 or 3 calls an hour. They didn't give us the duration of the calls, though. The staff basically, after 2,300 times, got tired of this, called the cops and like, can you figure out who this is and stop him? And they did. They found him. They arrested him. Don't annoy people in Japan. You can actually get arrested for it. Okay, the last story is the biggest one because it showed up in everyone. It's because it has dirty bits more than any other story. It has also a very weird element. There was a 29-year-old man, and he was getting it on with a 13-year-old girl. So that's bad already. He paid for the sex. He paid her 50,000 yen, so that it's like $500, so that they could meet and stuff. Yeah, $500. So that they could get together. They met on Twitter. The thing that struck everyone and why it was in all the news, all the different news outlets that I read, is because it actually had the word slave contract. So he had her, before they actually engaged in this activities, sign a slave contract, which to me actually demonstrates something that I'm not in any way justifying this. But he clearly has the mentality of a 13-year-old, because isn't that something a 13-year-old would do? Like, I can imagine 2 13-year-old kids getting into their first weird sexual relationship, not really knowing what they're doing, and they get so impassioned that they make a contract, and then, you know, the dominant one makes the sub sign it, and it has like things in it. So what things did it have in it? A pledge of eternal love, which again really seemed like a teenage thing to me. And that she would be his exclusive slave along with 4 pages of requirements. Now, they've really failed me on this one. I want the whole contract. I want all 4 pages of the requirements. First of all, what I want to know is how much effort did he put into constructing this? Did he just like make things up at random and just throw them in all willy-nilly? Was it itemized? Did it have subsections? This is the stuff. If I'm going to make a slave contract, it's going to be thorough. I'm going to take time. I'm going to do it on legal document paper. Like, I'm going to print it out. I'm going to have it like notarized, something like that. It's going to be a contract. Because it says like eternal love and stuff, I think it was probably more flowery than an actual contract and legalese. Which brings me to my second question. What was the language in this contract? Like, was it flowery? Did he use legal language? Again, because he's put in things like eternal love, I'm thinking his mental age is quite young. He thinks that's a good idea. So I'm assuming actually the language is pretty just like, oh, you're going to love me forever. And he just sort of typed it up as he was thinking stuff. First problem, eternal love should mean you don't have to pay 50,000 yen. Let's just do away with sort of some of the romance here and get into the reality. If you have to pay someone 50,000 yen for them to touch your body, that is not eternal love. It's not love, and it certainly is not going to be eternal. I think it's going to be until the next paycheck runs out. The exclusive slave part, again, as long as he had money, I bet that actually would have held up. He was arrested because he's having sex with a minor. I, being slightly sarcastic at times, would have arrested him for slavery. I don't know if that's a crime on the books in Japan, but, oh, I wish it was. They must have, like, kidnapping isn't good enough. They must have, like, a slave, anti-slave position on Japanese books. They must. So if they have an anti-slave position, like, so slavers would get this as punishment, I would have him arrested for that. I'm sure it would not stick in court, as this contract was probably not legally binding. But just to put a little bit more of a scare in him, like, okay, you're being arrested for having sex with a minor. He would be like, my life is over, I'm ruined. And then you go, and slavery. And just watch him shit his pants. Because it would. What is the punishment for slavery? In Japan, I've actually been grossed out by this. There's a lot of these sex with underage people. It doesn't go very far. They don't actually end up, they get arrested, but they don't get prosecuted. So they don't go to prison. They don't get jail time. They might get a fine or something. Basically, a lot of these situations, nothing happens to them, which is really disturbing. But at the same time, slavery, I'm sure that's a big punishment. So I know lawyers don't have a sense of humor about this stuff because they're doing their job and they're doing it seriously and stuff. But if someone out there just happens to listen to this, please charge him with slavery. That would be awesome.
You can tweet questions or comments at Ninja News Japan or join the Facebook group. On Facebook, search for Ninja News Japan. Sexy out, homie.
It cut off the homies. I gotta fix all my audio and stuff if I'm gonna do it this way.